Welcome to everyone wherever you're joining. My name is Kerri Rodriguez. I am a postdoc in the School of Social Work in the College of Health and Human Sciences. And I'm here today to talk about kind of a scary topic, but hopefully more approachable at the end of the hour, which is self-promotion. This is largely targeted to grad students, but really at any stage, whether undergrads, masters, PhD, postdocs, early career. I think it's a really broad audience that can kind of start in this world, and I hope to kind of talk about how to navigate Twitter, websites, science communication, and everything in between. Okay, so I wanted to start off talking about kind of the culture of academia for a second. So obviously there's a ton of researchers out there doing amazing work. So think about how many are in your school, your department, in your college, then at CSU as a whole, then in the state of Colorado, and then nationally, and then internationally. I mean, it's like astounding to think about how many researchers are out there doing work that's similar to yours or different than yours. And so the question is, how do we learn about them? And the more important question is, how do others learn about us? So think about that for a second. So you might be thinking about kind of the more traditional ways of how this has happened in academia throughout the course of the years. So the first is obviously literature. So you read a new paper, you see the authors at the top, you see their affiliations, you're able to see new research coming out, who's working together, and what's going on. However, let's all be honest, we all have a stack of papers that is waiting to be read, and oftentimes, at least I tend to read the abstract and I kind of gleam over the authors a lot of times. Even if I do kind of see the authors, I tend to forget it after the fifth paper that I've read. And so it's definitely a great way of getting yourself out there, but it's no longer the primary way to really get your research read is through these printed publications. Today, in the day of instantaneous information on the internet, it is way more likely that someone's going to be reading your paper through another type of medium, such as in a media article, shared online, or maybe even in an online lecture. So another way that you're probably thinking about how do other people get to know me and my research is through conferences. So historically, the best way to kind of network, meet other people in your field, but also let's be honest with ourselves, how many of you have met someone at a conference and then their name disappears within like 3 hours? And you might be giving out business cards, but maybe that's one of 100 business cards that people get that day. I'm not saying that conferences aren't great at networking and meeting people. However, it also can't be the only way that you're protecting yourself. So of course, enter the internet, a wonderful way of networking, collaborating, and sharing just from the comfort of your computer. It's incredibly accessible. It allows for all different populations across the world to connect, and it truly is an incredible tool. So promotion, what is it and what does it look like? So I'm going to talk about it largely in the sense of the internet, of course, but just generally, self-promotion is the act of furthering one's own growth, advancement, or prosperity. So super simple concept. You self-promote when you reformat your CV, when you choose a different color scheme of your resume, when you publish a new paper, when you form a collaboration, when you mentor a student. We're always doing this. But for some reason, it seems like a scary concept. And one of the things that I think is negatively talked about in self-promotion is that it's egotistic to further your own career and to talk about your successes, that it might be scary, that it might only be for those with, established careers that are already tenured, and that it's pretty men-dominated and a little bit hard for women to do. But I hope that everyone will kind of shift their thinking and think about promoting yourself as a very self-valuing type of opportunity for you to actually, say, pat on the back, I'm awesome, an approachable, not scary task for all career stages, and especially for women in underrepresented backgrounds. So self-promotion in the digital age, what does it look like? So I'm going to talk about two topics today. The first is personal websites. So kind of a private website as well as things like Google Scholar. And then I'm also going to talk about Twitter. These are screenshots of my personal websites and Twitter, but a humongous disclaimer, I am not an expert. I just started in 2020, so these are all really new. I think my website is actually like pretty bland and I'm gonna work on it. However, I wish that I would have started earlier. I just finished my PhD in 2020, so I was getting on the job market. And that's what drove me to get these things going. But I wish that I had gotten this talk earlier in my graduate career. So I'm hoping to kind of share the knowledge with you guys and encourage more people to get this internet self-promotion story started. Okay, so starting off with personal websites. So benefits of creating your own personal website. There's a ton. So it's one place for all your information. I think this is really important to think of your website as a landing page with easy links to your CV, your research, your teaching, your mentoring, links to your social media sites, links to your university site, etc. It also gives you a lot of control. So when someone Googles your name, whether that is a student, a collaborator, someone who's hiring you, someone who just wants to know about your research, you want your professional image and page to be showing up and not your old MySpace page and whatever else is on Google from your old days. It also allows to have a glimpse into you as a person. Oftentimes our CVs are, just kind of stale and bland. A website gives you a lot more creative freedom to upload pictures, express your personality and your passions. And then, of course, gives you visibility. So anyone that is wanting to learn more about you or your research, who's Googling you, it gives them a chance to be able to find you. I did want to point out that, of course, all of us have our own websites on CSU, like our own university websites. I'm not saying that those aren't great as well. However, one of the limitations of university websites is that they're time linked. So, you'll have your graduate school university, your postdoc university, maybe your faculty, and so you're going to be changing. Really, the personal website is there for your career. Also, the university websites, you often don't have creative freedom to do much with them. And this personal website allows you kind of a lot more flexibility, and then you can always link to that university website. Okay, where to start? So the first thing to think about is the website for me? I think that a website is for anyone who's entering the job market, applying for grants and fellowships, seeking collaborations, interacting with students, publishing, or networking. And that applies to pretty much everyone. So yes, I think a website is for you. And I hope you can think about this as something that is appropriate for all career stages. Even if you only have a couple lines on your CV, even if you're just new to publishing, it is for you. However, you also kind of need some time towards setting it up. So choose a time that you have not much going on for a week or two, and you can really devote some time to it. The next thing to do is to pick a host. So WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, and Weebly are kind of the top 4 that people use. They're all free. And the best part about these is that they offer pre-made templates and designs. So you no longer have to code and figure out your own thing. You just kind of click and drag and it'll make it look pretty for you these days. So this is what the templates look like. They're always really pretty. It's pretty easy process. These hosting services will offer you a free domain with the word in the domain. You can also pay for your own domain for not that expensive, $20, $30 to get your own type of domain. So, of course, you want to be able to add content to your page after you make it. The number and the type of pages are going to depend largely on the field and the person. So, for example, I don't really have that much teaching experience, so I don't have a teaching tab on my webpage. A friend of mine has a ton and is very interested in getting a career in teaching, so she has a whole page devoted to it. It'll just depend on kind of where you are. At the minimum, have a homepage or an about with a picture of you, a brief bio and contact. And then other things we can put is always your CV, your publications with links to view the publications, your research areas, teaching, any articles, media that you have been involved with, blog posts, presentations, etc. You definitely then have to keep up with it. Oftentimes, the biggest barrier to making a personal website is not creating it, but it's actually making sure you maintain it. So I like to create a calendar reminder every once in a while just to review the content and then upload anything that I need to update. Usually that's new papers that are coming out and new presentations and that kind of thing. And then promote it. So it's not useful to make a website and then no one will ever see it. So really easy ways to promote it is in your email signature, top of your CV, on your CSU page, you're allowed to link to an AppSci website, in your Twitter bio, on your business card, etc. And then to make sure that when people Google you, this comes up, you want to optimize your website for SEO. This sounds like it's complicated, but literally it's built into these platforms. They'll walk you through step by step on how to make sure that this is listed in Google when people Google your name. Okay, so definitely as you publish, you want to be able to share your publications online. I just wanted to give a caveat out there for those that are not aware of this, that oftentimes uploading the actual PDFs to anywhere on the internet is risky. Copyright policies usually forbid that, but they will vary from journal to journal. And oftentimes the PDF or even images from the PDF are copyrighted. So best way is to check your the journal's website of where you're publishing and find their sharing guidelines. So for example, this is what Wiley's looks like. This is Elsevier. Just try to look at your journal. There's no one size fits all. However, the way safer thing is to post the link. And that is usually the best way to share your publications online is just have an image or even a screenshot and then a link to the actual journal publication. Okay, so definitely the first step to this website idea is to get inspiration. So you can Google PhD website examples, academic website examples. There's also this wonderful master list of the Google Docs that I found on Twitter. That's all grad students, postdocs, and it's sorted by field, so geology, chemistry, etc., and by host, so WordPress, Wix, etc. I think this is a great resource. So this is the link to get them. I'll also give you guys these slides afterwards, and I think that is a wonderful way to be able to kind of get ideas. So this is some examples of really good websites that I think that I found on that list. So for example, this is a postdoc at University of Florida, and she studies massive star formation. So I like that she had this really fun star theme and had some fun with it. This is another example of a good one. I really like that she actually posted her updates of new things that she had on her website. On the left, you can see that's her home base for all of the different other websites she has. And then you can actually see she has a whole web page on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's a really interesting and kind of newer page people have. Usually it's just CV publications, research, and then contact me. So I love this. I plan on doing this as well. She has her goals and philosophy there, as well as you can see she has other really great service and teaching websites as well. And then this is another one that I liked. She actually has her Twitter feed embedded into her website. So I think that's another really unique and newer thing to do on websites that I think is pretty fun. Okay, so other types of websites. I think that at the very, very minimum, if you do not have a Google Scholar page, you need one as soon as possible. I think this is way more approachable than making your own personal website, and it's super easy and very important. So if you're not familiar with the Google Scholar profile page, it's a page that collates all your publications and your citations to them so that others can find your work. To get started by making a Google Scholar profile, you just go to Scholar, which I think we're all using all the time now to find research, and click on My Profile. Top of the page, it's gonna be linked to your Google address at first, but then you actually are gonna affiliate it to your university address instead, to your CSU email. You then get verified for your university email, and then you are a CSU researcher on Google Scholar. It'll ask you for keywords, of course, a photo, and make sure you make your profile public. Other tips to making a really good Google Scholar page and kind of how to navigate it. If you click on follow in the upper right corner of your profile page, you'll actually get email alerts anytime a new publication is associated with you that gets published. And the fun part is anytime someone cites your work, which I think is like the coolest thing ever. And really, it's a little pick me up sometimes. You're like, oh, I was cited today. Take advantage of the built-in co-author network. Add your co-authors to your profile, and that's a really good way to also be connecting and networking. And then the good news is you don't really need to keep up with this page at all. Google automatically adds publications to your profile. However, you do need to review and approve them. So especially if your name is Sam Brown or something that's super widespread in academia, it'll periodically ask you, are you this Sam Brown? Are you this Sam Brown? If you have a unique name, I don't have a unique name. I don't often have to do that. However, that's kind of the way that Google finds your publications. Okay, so obviously LinkedIn is one that gets talked about a ton. If you are not familiar with it, it's a social networking site that focuses on networking and career development. I have mixed feelings about LinkedIn for PhD students. However, it is definitely worth it if you are wanting to or exploring a career outside academia. So I think that it is incredibly useful for anyone wanting to go into consulting, industry, any other types of things. It's definitely useful for academia too, but that's the primary use. It's a good way to showcase your teaching, your research, and your publications. And I just wanted to throw it out there that Google has a ton of information on this, and I do not. I don't really use LinkedIn that much. So I encourage you guys to read these type of articles if you're interested in kind of going down the LinkedIn route. Okay, next we're going to talk about Twitter, the love of me and my life. I am super passionate about this, so sorry for nerding out. Okay, so Twitter for academics. If you are not familiar with Twitter, it is a news and social networking site where people communicate in short messages called tweets. You've probably heard of it, maybe just in general social networking, but you might not be familiar with it for academic use. So why you might want to start an academic Twitter? Lots of reasons. It allows you to connect with a large community, those within your field and other fields. There's so much research and resources that are being shared, as well as strategies, ideas, thoughts, tips, and tricks. It's a really efficient way to discover not only new research that's happening, collaborations that are forming, new conferences, job announcements, student positions, funding announcements, media articles. This is where I get all my news these days, especially conferences and job announcements. You can interact with people around the world without having to email. It's a very easy and efficient way to kind of form connections without kind of that more formal reaching out. And then you can share your research with the public and become a better science communicator, which really was my goal of having a science Twitter, was to be able to talk about my research and share it, and then it get picked up by broader audiences. Okay, reasons why you might not want a Twitter right now, and this is very important. It can be a time suck and it can be a distraction, especially if you're one that will get caught scrolling for hours. So this is often what I hear my colleagues say, like, I made a Twitter, but then I was just on it for too much. I was just caught up in it and would scroll for hours and it was a time suck. That is a very realistic aspect of Twitter, especially in academic Twitter. So just throwing that out there as a caveat. Also, I don't think that it's appropriate if you have a ton going on right now. If you have too many obligations and this is just one more thing to add to your plate. So just caveats of getting into this world. However, I think the benefits definitely outweigh the costs. Okay, so you start off making an academic Twitter by putting together your profile. So your profile is a header picture, a profile picture, obviously your tag, your handle, your name, a brief description of you, where you're located, your personal website or university website, and then when you joined. So this is an example of what grad student profiles look like. So oftentimes you have your affiliation, your research interests, your degree, your pronouns, definitely always tagging your affiliations of where you are. So that's CSU's handle. And then also usually your department or your school or your research group. And then link to your website and pretty much anything that you want to do here. Emojis are often used these days. And then another really interesting thing that's kind of popped up is having many different things and separated by, I don't know what this is called, the tall line that's underneath the backspace key to help kind of break things up. So there is a ton of resources out there on creating a profile. Keep in mind that mine changes all the time. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just get it up there. This is another example of what one looks like. Usually the picture is the hardest thing to come up with. I have gone through a million and it's usually dogs. Sorry, I should have specified I'm a dog researcher. This is my this is my Twitter network, so we're all dog people. You'll see a lot of dog stuff. Okay, so next step is to follow people. And so the first thing you want to do is set yourselves up for success. So strategically choose accounts to follow that will make Twitter an academic tool and not a distraction. So I would not, if your academic Twitter is your priority, would not follow Ariana Grande and rather do a very selective following of your colleagues, leaders in the field, research groups in discipline, and then just sit back and interact with it. See how people are communicating. See how your field is working on Twitter before you kind of get into it. Of course, then you can start following lots of other types of accounts. So obviously CSU, university, and then all of CSU's department and school handles, a research group that you're in or that you collaborate with, publishers, other journals that you publish in, any societies that you're in, conferences that you attend, and then of course industry partners, NGOs, and individuals, so other grad students, other postdocs, other master's students, etc. I'll give you these slides as well. I also, if you want to have a little bit more distraction and fun, there's some academic accounts that are funny and lighthearted, posting memes about thesis and dissertation writing and research. There are accounts that are specific to grad students that will post, life hacks and tips and advice. And then there's really great hashtags to follow to kind of be a part of conversations. Okay, so navigating Twitter, I wanted to point out that, again, there's wonderful resources online. This 5-part guide is wonderful. It goes through the nuts and bolts of Twitter, how to use it as a tool in academia, how to tweet, what to tweet, that kind of thing. And then CSU also has a Using Twitter website, and I recommend reading this as well. I think it's a really good resource. From my personal end, you don't have to tweet, just watch and learn, and that is also useful. Don't obsess about people following you. That'll come, and it doesn't really matter anyways for your own personal development. I think that that's more of like you're a startup and you want to like grow your business and grow your following. For academics, I think that it'll just happen over time. And then to find people to follow, I really recommend people use lists. So once they're in Twitter, this is what the list tab is. These are lists that sorry, that's really small, that I'm in Dog People, Graduate Student Resources, SciComm Rockstars, and a couple other ones. So if you're a chemist, go to list, type in chemistry, you'll get lists of people that are already on Twitter, and you can just kind of group follow that list. CSU also has this Twitter directory of all the CSU accounts, really easy to go find there. Okay, so you have a Twitter, you kind of see what's going on, and you want to start posting. So the first thing to post, the number one thing to post is obviously your research. And the really cool thing is we now have definitive data that suggests that research that is tweeted is cited more. So actually had a randomized controlled trial this past year, 2021. They randomized articles to either be tweeted or to just be published and not tweeted as usual. And they found that the tweeted articles got cited 3 times more than the non-tweeted articles. And this has really led the field to have a new phrase of it's no longer publish or perish, but it's promote or perish. There's just simply too much going on, too much information now for your research to not be in the internet sphere and just in printed publications. And then, of course, this has been talked about and researched heavily over the course of the 5-10 years. If you're interested in reading these papers, there's a lot of tips and tricks on how to get your research out there and its impact on citations. But overall, from my own personal experience, it definitely is a great way to get your research out there. Okay, so if you want to share your research on Twitter, there's some tips and tricks that I recommend. So when you're posting your research, think of it kind of as a way to hook people to be interested in your study. So rather than just saying new paper and then the title, try to come up with something that's a little bit more engaging. So for example, an incredible bond exists between humans and dogs. Ever wondered why and how you love dogs? Our new research study shows that love for dogs is encoded in our DNA. Read about it here. So just kind of little tiny blurbs to get people interested in what you found. When you link to your publication, I like to use the DOI rather than that huge like Springer link that they give you. And then you can also use a link shortener. Bit.ly is one, bit.ly, or CSU is a link shortener. Tag away, so tag your co-authors, your PI, your collaborators, your funders, university, it'll get more visibility. And then add an image and white space. So tweets with an image get a lot more engagement, and you'll see in a second, I'll show you some examples. And white space adds a lot of readability and kind of makes it more aesthetically pleasing. So again, I'll show you what this looks like in a second. Those are my top tips and tricks though. Okay, so sharing your research. So this is an example, new publication, read more here, and the Springer link. I guess you would maybe want to click on this if you were like super interested in the topic, but the average public person probably not going to click on this. That's another example. Oh, new paper, here's the link, and then the image is an image of the journal publication cover. What am I trying to say? The journal cover of the actual journal. I think it's better than having nothing, but still not super engaging. This is a little better. New publication. We did this and read it here. This is the link shortener, so you can see that it is a little bit less clunky. And then there's a screenshot of the paper. I think that is a great way for minimal effort. So step up from that is new paper, this is what we found, here's the link. And then the image is a figure or a graph from the actual paper. You can see already people are probably more likely to click on this. Your colleagues are probably going to be more excited about it. It'll get liked more, it'll get retweeted more. So this is an example of how much an image really adds to sharing. And then if you don't have an image or a graph that's like super visually pleasing, just put a picture up. So a picture of anything, obviously I study dogs, I'm sorry, as well as cats. But it just adds a lot to the post. And then a step up from that is to potentially think about making a graphic abstract. A graphic abstract is a graphic or an image that mimics a text abstract, but does it visually. So the idea is that you have all in an image, the objective of the study, what the study found, and briefly the implications of the study as well. This is an example of a super easy graphic abstract anyone can do. It is basically a screenshot of the title and authors, and then 3 bullet points or highlights of the research. And you can see she uses bolding to really kind of drive home what they found, what they did. And then an image from the study, a graph or a figure. Super easy, anyone can do it. And you can see automatically how visually pleasing that is and how effective it is at communicating what they found. This is an example of one of my graphic abstracts. I study service dogs. I tend to like to do a question to kind of like bring people in. Briefly how we did it, the methods, usually somewhere like there. And then I usually do 3 panels of 3 findings. And then I link the full publication and have images of our funders in the bottom right. Outside of my dog research, this is what graphic abstracts looked in other fields. So very similar types of concepts, but you can see, of course, with your field and with your study, it might get more complex. This is a really great example of how complex they can get, but you can see how effective they are. This is another one in psychology. So, and you could also see from down here how much engagement these usually get, a lot more than just posting the link. All of my visual abstracts I've ever made are on my website. If you need any inspiration and want to see what they look like, you're welcome to take inspiration from mine. I don't spend very long on them. I make them in PowerPoint as a slide and then save them as a JPEG. So it's usually not like too crazy. This one is the craziest I've gotten. It took me like a couple days to do. So it definitely takes some time. However, I think it's a great exercise in communication. And I think it's a really great visual tool. And they can go on your website after you're done. Okay, so you can also be posting your presentations. You can share your posters that you present if you have permission to share them. You can share that you are going to be presenting or that you did present, and then maybe share the title slide of your presentation. That's a great way. You can post interesting articles, interesting news that you found. That's a great way to get conversations going. Definitely share your accomplishments. So if you get a grant funded, shout it to the rooftops. If you're graduating, you defended your thesis, shout out to the rooftops. The academic community is just like so welcoming and wonderful that it's a really great way to kind of share your accomplishments and then get a lot of, congratulations and wow, because I think the Twitter community is just so supportive. Even little wins, like my first day and, submitted a paper, I think those are really important to have. And it's less scary to post these online than it is to say in front of a large room. So I think that's one of the or the benefits. And then Twitter, as I said, is a really good way for people to be able to share tips, share different types of life hacks. And that's where these hashtags are really important to be following, is because then you'll get kind of little tips and tricks like this. This is what I'm referring to when I say that Twitter is a community. It very much is kind of a place to share and connect in an academic world. Also thoughts and questions. What reference tool do you use? What kind of software do you recommend? Just kind of things like that. And you can see there's a lot of people that are willing to help and share and talk about these things. It's a really great way to do that. Okay, and then I also wanted to just quickly say that it might be uncomfortable for you to just be nonstop self-promoting yourself online. And I think that there's a really interesting concept of finding a balance of self-promotion. I think it's important for us to advocate for ourselves, but it's also incredibly important to advocate for our friends and colleagues and peers. And so I like to, Sarah is a great follow as well. She has a ton of information. I like to do this, and I think that she said it really beautifully, to retweet the work of people that you admire, especially junior faculty, reference someone else's publication, post a picture of the slide, tag people that are doing well. And then I just wanted to add in a couple of things. I think that it's important to retweet junior faculty, but also those of underrepresented backgrounds and anyone that you think needs a little, you're doing a great job and that you admire their work and you want to see them do more work. I love doing that on Twitter. I think it's really beneficial. And then I also think that it's important to talk about, I attended a great talk today. I read this new publication. It's awesome. My colleague Megan just got this award. I think that's all really important things to also do when you're self-promoting, is to kind of make this whole community a community of self-promotion. So these are ways to kind of find a balance between, if you're uncomfortable with, here's my new award I won and here's my new publication, balance it out with other things like that. Okay, parting thoughts. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Not only will your research get read and cited more, you'll meet network others in the field, you'll boost your confidence, you can celebrate your wins, big and small, on the internet, it'll increase your visibility, and we're all trying to get jobs out there, so ultimate benefit helps you get a job. Tons of resources. I don't know how many times I can say this, but there are so many experts on the internet that are just willing to share all of their expertise. These are all really great articles that I drew from today and that you are welcome to read and draw from moving forward. And this is a link to the slides. This is a link shortener example for anyone that kind of wants to reference the slides moving forward. That's my handle, that's my website. And thank you guys so much. I am definitely willing to take questions from the online people and the in-person people if anyone has any questions. Oh, great question. A DOI is I don't know what it stands for, something object identifier. It's a unique link that links to your paper. So when you have a paper published, they'll get a DOI, and that's usually the best way to kind of link to that paper. Yeah. Anyone online have any questions? I don't think so. That's easy.
When you're posting just random things that you're doing, like that's in progress, right? Not something necessarily that you publish. How do you know what you can and cannot post?
Oh, if you're working on something that is not.
Like if you're doing a postdoc for CSU and you want to post about the research that is ongoing, publish yet. And so there's this balance of like posting enough that people are interested, but not posting something that CSU would get upset about. Or even like noise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of that language. Sorry, online people. The question was, how do you balance like proprietary information that you want to share on Twitter, but that might be proprietary or owned by CSU? I think there's some literature, some language on that CSU Twitter information page. CSU is very much, I think all universities is trying to get more people to be on Twitter. So there's a lot of language on there that's like, this is how to do it safely and responsibly. So I think that they might have some information there. There's also a contact that you could always talk about. as far as people like scooping your ideas, I think that is obviously something you have to balance at conferences all the time as well, and just talking to colleagues. Use your own self-judgment there. But I think that it's still useful to be able to talk about, I'm doing a really exciting study with kids and dogs, and we're finding out some cool stuff. Can't wait to share it with you guys. You know, there's a really great balance that you can find to still be sharing, but not sharing too much, maybe. Any other questions? Cool. Well, reach out if you have any other burning questions. Happy to help any of this process, and I hope that you guys are inspired to get a start. Thanks, guys.
Do you have a business card or something?